Now, we did promise that we would bring you more news on what's happening in Pakistan. This is our top story today, where we're being told that at least 38 people have been killed in a suicide bombing that took place at a political rally in Pakistan on the border near Afghanistan. Earlier, I spoke to Tamana Salikuddin, who's Director of South Asia Programs at the United States Institute of Peace. This is funded by US Congress. I asked her for her take on what happened at this event.
We're entering into Pakistan's election season with likely to hold national and provincial elections sometime in the fall. And you have Jamiyat-e-Ulema Islam, JUIF, a major Islamist party, a right-wing party that is part of the ruling coalition, holding a normal political rally, large rally, and we're seeing for the first time in recent history a suicide bomber attacking civilians at this political rally. And it is pretty remarkable. As you said, the death toll will likely rise above the reported 44 right now. We have over 200 wounded. No one has really taken credit for it, but it's interesting that the Pakistani Taliban, or TTP, who has been responsible for most of the recent violence in Pakistan, most of the terrorist violence, has disavowed this attack. And it is really not how they have been perpetrating attacks. They, in July alone, have had over 70 attacks, but they are largely against security personnel. And so this attack has all the hallmarks of possibly being Islamic State's local affiliate of Islamic State of Khorasan Province, ISKP. They haven't taken any credit yet, but they are active on both sides of the border. And Bajor, where this attack took place, is one of the areas from which they draw followers.
Tamana, just to make it clear to our viewers, because it wasn't in the introduction there, that you're Director of the South Asia Programs at the United States Institute of Peace. It's something that's funded by US Congress. So you'll be watching this extremely closely, I am sure, because, of course, it's so politically toxic in Pakistan anyway, with all that's been going on with regards to those who want to be in power and the change of power, etc. there. And for this to happen at the beginnings of what would be seen as a political rally is not a good sign at all, is it, in the run-up to an election which is expected this year?
Not good at all. And, Pakistan has been experiencing what many are calling a polycrisis. So we have been seeing, after the ouster of former Prime Minister Imran Khan and the events that have followed, large political polarization. So we have a political crisis, you have economic crisis going on in Pakistan, but you've also experienced a terrorism crisis. But that terrorism crisis was largely focused on the Pakistani Taliban. This addition of potentially Islamic State complicates an already muddy scenario leading up to elections. It also makes much more vulnerable civilian populations who will be gathering in large groups as election season takes off.
Well, let's go live to Islamabad now to get the very latest on this. Caroline Davis, our correspondent, is there for us. Caroline, what is the latest? We're being told the death toll stands at around 38.
Yes, Sally. So we've also now had confirmation from the police that they do believe that this is a suicide bombing. Yesterday, they said that there seemed to be evidence to suggest it would be. Today, they have now confirmed it. They've said that this suicide bomber used around 10 kilograms of explosive and that there were ball bearings also used in that detonation as well to try to cause maximum death and destruction. And as we know, the death toll is at 38. That number has been changing around, but part of the reason is that many of the people who were injured, the local hospitals quite quickly overwhelmed, and some were taken to other areas to receive medical treatment as well. So we now know that there were 38 dead. That's the latest total from the police. Amongst those, there are still people that the police say that they haven't been able to identify. And Sally, we've been speaking to people who were on the scene either at the time when the explosion happened or soon afterwards, who've talked about the chaos, the confusion, and quite frankly the level of destruction, which has made it difficult for the police to be able to identify some of those bodies. They've been using the clothes, the shoes of those people who were killed to try to do that. Some of those who were killed have already had their funerals. There were images that we've seen since last night of funerals of hundreds of people attending to mourn in the middle of the night after people had been killed in this explosion. But of course, crucially, as you were just hearing, we still haven't heard of any particular group taking responsibility for this suicide bomb. At the moment, that means that plenty of people are speculating about what this was about. Is this about political pressure before the election? Is this about a localised issue? Is this something that's a much wider issue? At the moment, without knowing which group is behind it, it is very difficult to identify that motive.
So heightened concern because, as you have said, Caroline, there is hope to be an election, certainly this year. This does not bode well, does it, for how this process will go forward?
Yes, so Pakistan is building up and has been building up to this general election for some time. The current government is due and expected to hand over to a caretaker government in August in preparation and build up for that general election. We don't have a date for that yet, but it's expected to be in sort of October, November time as the anticipated time period, according to the constitution in Pakistan. But the fact that this is happening even before we have a general election date is of concern. Does this mean that political rallies are going to be part of a target at the moment? And so this is already quite a major worry. As we know, security has been increased. We know that there has been a security situation, difficult security situation in Pakistan. There's been an increased number of these attacks that have happened in the course of the last 18 months or so. Many of those behind it is the Pakistan Taliban, but as we've heard, they've distanced themselves from this particular attack. Not entirely clear who is behind it, and a real worry about what this might mean for the build-up to the general elections.
OK, for now, thank you very much indeed, Caroline Davis there in Islamabad for us.